Hello and welcome to the WhyKnox podcast brought to you by Visit Knoxville. My name is Jody Collins of Feral Giant and I'll be your host on this journey. What we'll be doing is interviewing different folks around Knoxville that make Knoxville the great place it is to live. We'll have staples that you see around town all the time, but we'll also have some lesser known folks, people behind the scenes that make this a great city. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. And if you'd like to share the podcast on social media, be sure to tag us at Visit Knoxville and use the hashtag WhyKnox. Without much further ado, here's the episode.
Hey, my name is Brian Strutz. I am the co-owner of Dopo, sourdough pizza in downtown Knoxville.
And are you originally from here or are you from somewhere else?
Originally, I was born in South Florida. I lived there for 10 years. I moved to Knoxville with the family move.
Okay.
And then the rest of my life has been here. So I pretty much say I'm from here.
Okay. Where? Which side of town did you grow up on when you all moved here?
Yeah. So when we moved here, we moved to West Knoxville off Lovell Road. Went to AL Lots, and then I grew up in the Farragut school system.
Way out there, out on the edge.
Yes, way out there.
Did you go away to college or did you go to UT?
Yeah, so I ended up going to UT, graduated with a degree in marketing.
Okay.
So I was there for 4 years. From the moment I got there, I guess I wanted to get out. It was the same way in middle school and high school. I was always anxious to become an adult and move on with my life. So it was a short moment of life for me. But yeah, I studied marketing.
Okay. What did your folks do for a living?
Yeah, so, my mom was a stay-at-home mom, although she worked at a few administrative jobs over the years. My father worked in personal finance. He was what some people would call a financial advisor, started selling insurance, and then as we moved up here, switched over to mutual funds and annuities, and really was a financial advisor.
Okay. Now, here may be a side question. So that may have been the marketing, getting into the real world. Be like, were you kind of thinking, "Oh, I can't do that. I got to do something fun," or was that what kind of led you to marketing?
Sure. No. Well, I've always liked to cook. I cooked at home. I cooked for friends. I cooked for my family. I had my mom is a really wonderful cook. I had an uncle that taught me a lot. And in high school, I got a job as a cook at a Greek restaurant, working for Jim and Lori Clanaris, actually. And they kind of, to come full circle, they now own several very popular restaurants downtown, Cafe 4 and Kefi being two of the more notable ones. And I was there where I first learned how to cook professionally, so to speak, for money. So I was interested in things like music and art and cooking. And I did play sports more as a genetic predisposition, but I gravitated to the other stuff too. Okay. And then in college, I didn't want to follow a path of finance, but I was pushed into a degree of business just because of the logic behind it, that whatever I chose to do with my life, the expectation was that I would have a foundation of knowledge that would help with it. So I wish I could say I was a lot more thoughtful and with a very specific focus, but it was a broad path of least resistance for me to move on with my life.
Yeah. I feel like everybody going into college now could use business classes because you never know what path you're going to be on later in life, and it never hurts.
Absolutely. I would amend that statement to say, if you can, everyone should get a degree in accounting first and foremost, because that's one of the more practical degrees that will help anyone that has any interest in entrepreneurship, running their own business, or managing money. And money is certainly a necessary evil in our world. So you might as well understand it to the best of your ability.
So you kind of worked in restaurants, but when you got out of college, did you continue working in restaurants or did you move on to something else?
Yeah. So all through college, I also worked in restaurants, except I was a server all 4 years just to help pay through school. So I was a cook in high school, a server in college. And then when I graduated, I got a job in television.
Okay.
Yeah, I got a job in development with a local television production company called North South Productions.
Okay.
They make reality-based programming, and the first year with them was spent looking for talent, so to speak, and coming up with ideas and pitches. And it was a really fun, creative, random job that I parlayed into a career, at least for the time being, as an editor. And they trained me how to work in post-production.
Okay.
And that was my life for a little over 3 years. And then my wife, at the time, my girlfriend, Jessica, and I had been dating for about 5 years. And then we got married. And after we got married, we bought one-way tickets to Italy. And really just got out of here and went to the next thing. And we did that for a lot of reasons, but one, the two of us had studied abroad in Italy, separate from each other, and met up there while we were there for a little while too. So there was this kind of Italian connection between the two of us from a romantic way as well. But we wanted to go back, and we went back, and we set up arrangements with a few different farms over there where we did what was called woofing, worldwide opportunities on organic farming. And so we lived and worked on farms for room and board and all of our meals. And we did that in several different cities throughout the country. And then we met a family that operated a small hotel in a town called Viareggio, and they didn't know any English. We knew enough Italian, or at least more Italian than their English, that they asked us to stay with them and live with them and act as translators for the guests. Because where they were, they had a lot of German tourists that would come to the town. And the Germans would try and speak English before they would try and speak Italian. So they had all these people coming in, and they had no way of communicating with them. So we just sort of fell into that position. And it was a really sweet, wonderful time where the first year of our marriage was spent in another country trying to speak another language in a tiny room, what they called the mansarda, which is the attic that we lived in. And it was complicated and romantic and wild and unpredictable, and I'm really glad that we did it.
Did you? Is Jess from here?
Yeah, Jess is from Knoxville.
Okay.
She
Did y'all ever have a moment where you looked at one another and said, "What are we doing? How did we get here?" Like,
yeah. Well, of course, like a young couple in marriage, even though we had been together for a while, you're constantly addressing areas of conflict, and you're learning so much, like drinking from a fire hose, so to speak, about each other. And when you're traveling, you're learning that much more because you have to make so many decisions. Every moment there's a new decision to make, especially if you're on the road. So that forced us to really learn a lot about each other, and it was good. It was ultimately a really good thing for us. But a funny story that I like to tell really quickly is we both met each other at the same first job, working at what used to be Kalamata Kitchen in West Knoxville. It was the Greek restaurant.
Yeah.
And I accidentally got put on as a host for my first day of work, even though I was hired to be a cook. And so my first day, I show up as a host, kind of wondering why I'm there. And it actually was her that trained me. And she's a year older than me, and I had a huge crush on her from the moment I saw her, and really just was kind of fell in love.
Yeah.
So she trained me on my first day of work ever, but we didn't date. She didn't have any interest in dating me for many years, but I saw her at the mall with a friend of mine, and I said, I'm going to marry that girl one day.
Oh my God.
I was 16 years old when I said it, and this guy actually told that story at our wedding. He was my best man, which is, I think that's a pretty fun story, because I can assure you I have not said that about any other woman in my life, and it came true. So, I'm not like... I think it's coincidental and lucky to have a story like that. But that's
amazing. Yeah, and then to end up in Italy, trying to get German people to speak Italian. Yeah. How long were you all over there?
So we were there for about 6 months.
Okay.
Not as long as we had originally planned.
And was that kind of where the idea for doing a Dopo came out of, was being over there?
You could say that our time there inspired a lot of what we now have at Dopo.
Yeah.
But not really. People mistakenly think that I was learning how to cook pizza over there, which is wrong. I did get to work in a wood oven with a 70-something-year-old Neapolitan woman who couldn't speak any English, and that was a really fun memory.
Yeah.
But if I'm being honest, I've learned a lot more about pizza doing it every day for the last 3 years.
Okay.
I specifically have wanted to have a restaurant for a long time. For career day in high school, I I dressed up as a chef, restaurant owner.
Okay.
And that was just this common thread that was in my life. People who knew me knew that that's something I would want to do. But the path that I took to get there was a little circuitous. I worked in television. And when we came back from Italy, we moved in with her family. We had some family issues, a couple of deaths in our family over a very short period of time. We lost both of our fathers. And at that time, I got a job cooking at Blackberry Farm.
Okay.
So I was a line cook there, which ended up connecting me to a lot of really wonderful chefs in the area.
Yeah.
And my time really at Blackberry was bookended by the loss of both of our dads. And when my dad got sick, he had pancreatic cancer. That was my last day at Blackberry when we found out. Yeah. And so I left there to go really figure out what I was going to do next. And I started really thinking about the future of, my family and my mom's well-being. And in the financial industry, you have what's called a book of business. You have your clients, and there's some residual income on it. And I thought, well, this is going to dissolve, or I can go and get licensed to do the same thing that he did and buy that off of my mom, so to speak, so she could have some of that residual income.
Okay.
So that was the plan. I also probably tried to convince myself I could make a go of it in that career.
Yeah.
Even though I never really wanted to. So I did. It was just kind of put my nose down, got licensed to do all that, really while my dad was still alive. And when he passed, it was just a whirlwind of trying to figure out what to do with other people's investment money. Yeah. Which is another conversation, and I'm probably making this really long-winded.
No, you're fine.
But what happened was a lot of his clients were aging. They were older, and several of them started to lose their spouses. And it was like someone would die, and then we would handle all the paperwork that would help them, whether they had a death benefit or a transfer of ownership of a policy or whatever it was. There was a domino effect of men that started passing away in and around my life. And then, we lost a grandparent not long after that. And it was just this really, really sad time that was so shrouded by death and mortality. And I'm telling you all this because I think it's important to say that moment of my life is what really shaped the restaurant for me. That's what made me say, you know what? Tomorrow, I'm dead. Yeah, I have to do something today. This is very obvious to me now what mortality looks like. So I'm going to take a risk. I'm going to put all the cards out on the table and take a real risk, which is the biggest reason the restaurant's open. I probably would have talked about it for the rest of my life and never actually taken the risk. And Jessica and I often, we think that if both of us still had our fathers alive, we would never have opened the restaurant. Okay. Because we were so compelled to take a risk when we saw through experience just how fragile life was, I guess, to make the most of it,
Yeah. And God, this is going to seem very hacky to go from that very earnest moment to be like, so what made you choose pizza? Yeah. In going through that and, knowing you always wanted to be in the restaurant industry, was pizza something that was always kind of in the back of your mind, or was that something like, I don't want to say calculate, but did you kind of surveil the landscape and be like, I think this would be really good? Or do you just love that kind of pizza?
That's a great question. Pizza, and it is a question that we get asked a lot. I think when people see someone that has a classical background or cooked at a really high-end place, they think, well, why are you doing pizza? Why are you doing burgers? And like everything you're going to ask me, I'm sure the answer is more complex than you want. Yeah. So that first job, I ended up working on their wood-fired pizza oven. Oh, so there is something really sentimental about it. I used to make little snacks for what would end up being my future wife from that wood oven. So I think that seed was planted early. More superficially, what kid doesn't love pizza? Oh yeah. So to say, it's because I love pizza, I think is not enough. I do. I think we all do. But I do have a little bit of a background in finance now. In marketing, I took some classes, and the short stint in the industry really helped me understand the metrics of a retail product or a restaurant. And Pizza has a really good margin. We talk about margin in the restaurant industry. A big one, food cost is really, aside from labor, going to be your greatest cost in a restaurant. Yeah. And pizza has a high margin on top of food costs. So generally, food costs can be lower. And so while I hate to say, yeah, I chose pizza because you can make money on pizza, nobody wants to hear someone admit that. That's a large part of why I chose it, is because the restaurant, first and foremost, had to be sustainable. I didn't want to pretend that I could open up some ultra-seasonal boutique restaurant where the menu's changing every month and actually make money off of it. I didn't want to take this risk and lose everything that we had. At least I wasn't prepared to. So it had to be a smart decision. So pizza, for me, was a smart financial decision for the restaurant. That was one half of it. The other half of it was I thought the style of pizza we would be doing, which we say is a Neapolitan style, I thought that there was a huge hole in the market for that, specifically with a sourdough crust. And that's the biggest part of what we do is our dough. And it's gone through a lot of changes and variations over the 3 years we've been open. But that's because we're constantly learning. The dough is constantly evolving. We're adapting to it. It's very, very complex. And that, again, could be another podcast just about fermentation, a whole series of podcasts just about fermentation with what we've learned. But I got into bread baking. I read the Tartine book like many other cooks and bakers have, and was inspired by that. Started baking sourdough at home. Started baking some sourdough pizza at home. And all of those things that were stewing in my brain about the metrics of a restaurant, how fun it is and sort of nutritious it is to cook food like that, sourdough, naturally leavened, it just made perfect sense. And then when you take into account our history with Italian culture and traveling there, it was almost like the decision was made for me.
Well, and I'm trying to think how to say this. I know from the outside it may sound, I don't want to say cold or like calculated. I didn't mean that in like a negative way, but it's also, I feel like if you're opening something where a lot of things are opening, you actually have to look at because you don't want to open and I'm trying to think of a good example. A hamburger shop across from a hamburger shop. Like that could cause some problems. But I feel like being on the outside and seeing what you do, you're also not doing anything halfway. You're doing it really well. And you're like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it to the best of my abilities. So that's just from somebody who visits and eats, whole pizzas in one sitting. That's what it appears like to me. It's like it may have been a business, but it was more like, but I'm going to do this right. Like at the end of the day, I'm going to do this right.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that, and I'm certainly glad that that's the perspective you take. And I know how hard we all work.
Oh,
and that whole idea of giving it everything that we had, that was just an underlying tone in my approach to this. I felt like that part was assumed. I'm not going to half-ass it, so to speak. We're going to actually give it our all. Despite what anybody else thinks about it, we're going to work really hard at making this the best we can. And I think that's contributed a lot to the success.
Okay, so you're 3 years in at this point?
Yeah, we just celebrated our 3-year anniversary on October 6th.
One more. What made you choose that location? I feel like you're in kind of a perfect spot in that you're not in a glut of other things, but you're just close enough to where I don't want to say you're an island, but it almost feels like you are somewhere where 5 years from now, I feel like a lot more is going to be built out around there to where it can be a little bit more of an extended community from downtown. Yeah.
So what made us choose that location? And I've answered this question a few times, and so much of it it's hard for me to tell what I'm saying in hindsight and really what I was doing at that time. And I had never opened a restaurant before. This was all new. I hadn't signed a commercial lease. So I was really flying by the seat of my pants. Mm-hmm. I got to spend a little bit of time in Arizona at a place called Pizzicletta. And before I went out there, and I went out there specifically to work with someone who was doing our style of pizza in the same oven, naturally leavened. Got to know the owner, worked for free for a few weeks, and he became a bit of a mentor of mine. We actually have a pizza on our menu named the Pizzicletta.
Nice.
And I say that because his restaurant really was in a very similar location. It's in an urban environment, but just on the outskirts of town.
Okay.
Where there's plenty of parking. There's easy access.
God, yeah.
And rents were relatively cheap. So when I came back from there, it started to reshape where I was looking. At one point, I thought maybe I wouldn't even be downtown. You kind of look at all options.
Yeah.
But when I came back from there, it was like, I have to be downtown. So from there, the next question was, well, what landlords do I go to? And so it was pretty clear based on who I've spoke with and past experiences that I would reach out to David Dewhurst. So as a lot of people do, they call them first and say, what do you have available?
Yeah.
Let me see what you have available. So really, I toured the space with David first, and we looked at it several times, brought our architect in, we looked at the space, tried to see if it could work in there. And it used to be a paint shop, an industrial paint store, among other things over the years. And no one would have suspected a pizzeria could have gone in there. But it was downtown.
Yeah.
Rent was cheap because it wasn't in the heart of downtown. We're still in an area that's growing, if you will. Yeah. And we pulled the trigger in March of 2016, just thinking that if what we do is as good as I think it will be, we will be a destination of sorts.
Yep.
And there are some rules in real estate that I don't think restaurants have to live by anymore, like the whole location
right.
being of primary interest. Restaurants are a little different in that you can be a destination anywhere. If you truly have something that people want, they're going to find you.
Yeah.
In that place, or where we are now, there are several hundred free parking spaces under the interstate, a block away, and that's not going away anytime soon.
No.
So parking was a big part of it, and low rent and great landlords.
And I think it's odd in that, like, where you're at and then out north a little bit, I feel like those areas are very giving to locals. You know, I feel like downtown, it may be a little bit more tourists, or it may be people from West Knoxville coming in, like, I'm going to go downtown and have a dinner. Mm-hmm. Whereas I feel like some of the places, like along Central, like you take a place like Hops and Hollers, or like a Dopo, I feel like a lot of business is probably locals that is their spot. Like, this is where we go. This is what we do when it happens. And I feel like that's a little bit of a good thing about being on the edge of downtown, to where it's more open to a local fan base. I hate to use the term fan base. It seems so goofy, but
no, I'll take it. Yeah. Please. Any term.
But yeah.
No, but to speak on that, and that's a great point. And there are some fantastic restaurants in and around Market Square and on Gay Street, and restaurants that I frequent. But I think you're right in that the people who live here, they really want to identify with a community, whether that be a literal community of restaurants and shops and roads and parks, or a community of friends. We're all kind of yearning to belong to something.
Yeah.
And when the tourists gravitate to a certain community or area, it's natural for the people that live there to just go away from it, because they want something that they call their own, or at least maybe take pride in. This is just a theory I have. So you're absolutely right. And where we are now, it could be that in 10 years, it could be touristy. We don't really know what's going to happen as the city changes and grows. And I welcome any economic investment around us.
3 years in, I know it's probably 24/7, working and thinking and doing everything you can to get it going. Do y'all ever get to go out and enjoy yourselves? I guess is the better question.
Yeah.
And if you do, where are some places you like to kind of go around town?
Yeah, that's a good question. I will, to the first part of what you said, at least answer this. We have a lot more free time than a typical restaurant owner would.
Okay.
And that's for a myriad of reasons. One, my wife and I are partners in that we both work together really well. We get to spend a lot of time together at and outside the restaurant. And we balance each other out really well with our responsibilities. So we're able to accomplish a lot with just the two of us.
Okay.
So that helps us have free time because we're getting a lot of work done. Secondly, and I know everybody likes to say they have a great staff, and it can kind of feel like a cliche. Couldn't do it without the people.
Yeah.
But I have to continue to echo that sentiment in that the people we have working for us really are incredible people, and they've bought in. They work very hard. They make it easy for us to be able to take days and nights and weekends or, a trip away. It's because we trust them, we value them, we respect them, and same with them towards us. They respect us. They respect the restaurant. So we're able to have free time. And of course, when we're sitting down at dinner, we're talking about the restaurant a lot.
Yeah.
When we go to bed at night, we're talking about the restaurant and the plans that we have.
Right.
It's there. It's over us. It's around us. It's our life. But that's not such a bad thing. We really do enjoy it.
Yeah.
So when we get free time, we actually used to eat out. I don't know if we ate out more or less since we opened the restaurant, but let me just say that we eat. If you want to know a list of the restaurants we eat at, it's not going to be all encompassing, because if I leave someone off, I'm going to feel bad.
Yeah.
But, Jesse Newmeister's a friend of mine. I really respect what he's done with food. We eat a lot at Kaizen. Taco is a new restaurant that opened up near us. We love both of his restaurants. I used to work for and with Joseph Len at Blackberry Farm.
Okay.
He's got JC Holdway. That's a very special restaurant to us. I think Knoxville's very lucky to have that.
Yeah.
Matt Gallagher, another Blackberry Farm alum, has Amelia in the soon to reopen Knox Mason and the connection with Payson. So all three of those businesses, and you start to hear a list of places that I think a lot of people they mention the same things. But I'd like to keep going, because there are places I do want to talk about, but the North Shore Brasserie was probably one of our first favorite restaurants in Knoxville.
Oh, yeah.
We still go there regularly. They are unwavering in quality. I really, really love that place. RT Lodge is another one that people don't really talk about because it's in Maryville and it's in an awkward property on Maryville's campus. But Trevor Stockton, who's the chef there, has done a fantastic job creating a menu and a culture around food and beverages that is kind of unparalleled in the area, except for Blackberry Farm, which is another thing a little bit further away that we don't get to go to because we're not making that much money. But we certainly,
year five.
But we do get to see a lot of the chefs and cooks that work there. They come into the restaurant, and I think that place is firing on all cylinders right now.
Yeah.
And East Tennessee and the state is very lucky to have Blackberry doing what it's doing. Also, there's a place called Cook to Be Well inside a Glowing Body.
Yeah.
Jenna Baker is a good friend of mine. She helped us out a little bit working at the restaurant. She opened up a takeout plant-based food place where people can go and grab lunch or dinner or even kind of meal kits through the week, prepared meals. And she's doing phenomenal food. She's a classically trained chef, went to the CIA. And we eat there probably more than anywhere else just because it's such good, nutritious, healthful food. I have a great respect for her. And aside from that, I probably eat burritos at Herradura 3 times a week. Asia Kitchen out west at least once a month.
The big argument, I don't know if we can get onto on here on La Esperanza versus La Herradura. Oh man, there are apparently battle lines. Like I am on Team La Esperanza, and I have a wealth of friends that are Team La Herradura. I'm like, I just feel like I'm just going to be over here eating my La Esperanza.
No, enjoy it. Enjoy it. And if you haven't noticed, I hate sort of empirical things. I don't like to say that this is the best, this is the worst, top 5, top 10. That always makes me cringe. So, I go to La Esperanza myself as well many times. I think it's great. And I don't even engage on the argument of what's better or what's worse.
Yeah. I think it's just among my friends for some reason, it just ends up, I'm like, it's the same thing. It's like, I don't want to argue about this. I'm just like, no, I just like this one. And they're like, yeah, but you need to go. I was like, I have been there. I do go there. It's fine. Like I
know. And it's great. That's great. But who cares?
Everything's great.
You're eating food that you like. You're happy. End of story.
Okay. We've talked about food. Do you all go to shows or go to like, I know I've run into you all at Pretentious since they opened the brewery there. I have bumped into you all there. So do you get around to like the breweries and, because I know like they like to work with everybody likes to work with everyone. That's a great thing in this town is everybody supports one another and everybody likes to work together. So do you get around to like breweries or bars or
we do.
Shows?
I've yes to all three. We don't go to as many breweries, mostly because we are a wine drinking family, which there's not a huge wine culture in Knoxville, which I hope to be a part of changing that, as I think some people before us have done an excellent job. And I love Matthew and all the guys and girls at Pretentious. Like they're a wonderful place. Yeah. Even when I don't want to drink beer, I will go there and drink beer just because it makes me so happy to be around those people, the creative, artistic, very giving people, and they just seem to have a lot of fun. We do that occasionally. In terms of going to shows, anytime a musical act that comes through town, whether it's at the Tennessee, the Bijou, or the Mill and Mine, or we saw Jack White when he came through with the Raconteurs.
Yeah,
that was a lot of fun. If we have the night off, and it often ends up being like a spontaneous thing. We'll get tickets, and if we can go, great. But we can only plan so far in advance.
Okay.
I think the Mill and Mine, is right there down the block from the restaurant, and there's a lot of cool shows that go there.
Explosions in the Sky. We bumped into another Explosions in the Sky.
Yeah,
somebody I've been yelling at everybody that they needed to come here for like 10 years. I'm like, why is Explosion in the Sky not coming to Knoxville? But then I realized later, it's like, they don't tour that much, and they tour very, very infrequently.
And this was like, a 20th anniversary tour?
20th anniversary, and from what I understand, there are rumblings that this actually kind of may be it for live. Like, they've been getting into soundtracks and stuff so much that it may just be like, I don't know. It is an amazing show. That's the third time I've seen them, I think, and I drove to Atlanta once to see him on the way to Savannah. I booked a vacation in Savannah just because I saw they were playing in Atlanta. I was like, well, I want to go see them. I'll pop on down to Savannah for a few days and hang out. Didn't realize how far away those two were. And I was like,
it's not a hop, skip, and a jump.
Yeah, not a hop, skip, and a jump. But, okay, going to shows, stuff.
But I love what's happening in Knoxville in a lot of ways. Food, music, art, culture in general. We continue to see new musical acts, off-Broadway shows, on tour. There are people creating things in the city that we are, again, very lucky to have in terms of the entertainment companies, the booking companies, the festivals that we have with Big Ears and Rhythm and Blooms. There's a lot going on right now, and it's a lot to take in, but we're all benefiting because of it.
Yeah, and another big thing, do you all get out to like parks or do mountain biking or any of the physical, what am I talking about? Get outside. Like, I feel like that's another good thing here for me now that it's not 95 degrees. It feels great outside. This is my weather. Right?
I welcome fall for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we, I did like to do several hikes over the course of a year. One I do at least once a year is Gregory's Bald. We'll usually camp up there with a friend of mine. I'll do House Mountain probably a handful of times every year as well. Yeah. That's a fun, quick hike. In terms of getting out into parks and green spaces, any chance we get, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially now on the South River side, I've gotten groups of friends and just gone over to the park over there and just gotten blankets and sat down and just laid there and stuff. I was like, this is amazing.
It is. And it's always a little bittersweet because there's never anyone else there when I go.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that means, but I would love to see more people taking advantage of parks like that. I assume you're talking about the park over off Sevier.
Yeah.
What's the name of it?
And I was like, is it Harrogate's Landing or Suttrie's Landing?
Suttrie's Landing.
And I should know this.
It's Suttrie's Landing.
But I think it's because of Suttrie's and Harrogate's Lounge. Yeah. I always get it. It's like, I hate to say this, and I hope they don't hear this, but Chivo and Chivo. I said it the wrong way to a friend's mom just to poke at her. And now I can't remember which one is the right way. Because she said, oh, yeah, we're going to... What is the correct way? Chivo or Chivo? Do you know?
It's, as far as I know, it's Chivo, yeah.
So it's Chivo. She's like, we're going Chivo later. It's like, actually, it's pronounced Chivo. And now I can't remember which one is the correct...
Oh, that makes me cringe a little because our name is confusing and it's weird. And people spell it. And it'll be a Dopo, a Doba, a Dopo. And it really... It sounds like it bothers me. It doesn't bother me. I knew we were going to get that signing up for a weird name, but it's a name that's was easy to trademark. It comes up in a lot of Google searches. It's alphabetically
Has
at the
good
top of every
SEO.
list.
Good SEO.
And it does have some significance to us, but I know that feeling of being hard to pronounce.
If it helps, at least once a week when I introduce myself to somebody, I'll say, "What is your name?" It's like, "Jody." "Jeremy?" It's like, not even close.
So what you're trying to say is people just don't care about anything.
I think I don't know if people are.
We're all just
We won't
floating
go
around.
down there. We're all just floating. Yeah, Jeremy is the one I get the most. I'm like, Jeremy.
No,
Jody.
It's Jody.
So I literally spell it out like I'm talking to a 5-year-old all the time. I go Jody, Jody, like that.
Yeah, well,
Jeremy.
my name's Brian Strutz, and my whole life Brian has been misspelled as Brain, which is probably more just accidental, not like thinking my name's Brain, at least I hope. But my name would also often get spelled Brain Sturtz, and it just became a running joke. So
Stutz. I would think Stutz.
Sturtz.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Anyway. What do you think? We've talked a lot about what's good in this city, but what do you think the future holds? What do you think could be like room for improvement or something you see coming down the pipeline? You're like, that's going to be good for us.
What I think is going to be really good for the city is continued growth in the residential population downtown. I think that's been huge for the city, having so many people living, sort of a captive audience, so to speak, for the restaurants and bars and retailers, in a place for the employees to live so they don't have to commute. I think that's creating a really livable city, which would give us a lot of long-term success and economic growth. And I applaud all of the developers that are taking risks, even if some of those risks are mitigated by, maybe tax savings from the government, which has helped a lot of projects.
Save the city.
So we're lucky to have a forward-thinking administration that's doing things to encourage growth. I that's the stance I take. More people need to support local businesses. You hear that a lot, support local. Why are we supporting local? Well, it's just because that money's going into the direct pockets of the people that are living and working in this economy. The benefits are long. We don't have to get into that, but if we have customers that will continue to support us and all the other restaurants like us, the city will be fine. We had some customers come in the other night and they were celebrating an anniversary, and they told us they just had an awful experience at another restaurant. They didn't want to name it, but so they came to ours, and I wasn't serving that night, but I just wanted to serve them to kind of figure out what was going on. And I said, well, listen, I don't need to know what the other restaurant was, but coming from one restaurant owner, I encourage you to go back there. Because getting this right 7 days a week, 360 days a year, I don't know if you're off for holidays, but getting it right every day, it's so relentless. And I don't say that as a woe is me mentality. I just mean, I wish people could be a little more forgiving and empathetic to all businesses. And in my case, it happens to be restaurants. And just don't be so quick to write a 1-star review or to stop going somewhere because you saw they had an empty table that they wouldn't seat you at. I can guarantee you that a restaurant wants to seat you. If they're holding that table, they're probably holding it for a reason. Just use logic and empathy and give businesses a chance to succeed. Otherwise, they won't. And
I'll hold my tongue there.
Don't hold your tongue. You can always edit this.
My thought is I always say go at least 3 times. I said 3 times is a good, and spread them out a little bit just to see. Because I know there was one restaurant in town that when they first opened up, everything I heard was negative. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to give it a few months and let them work out the kinks. And then I finally went in after about a year. I was like, no, this is good. It's like they figured it out. I think, changed out management, and it was like, okay, no, this is good now. It was like they had some starting issues. And
well, that's great. Thank you for being willing to give it another shot.
Anybody who goes, I got a very long text from a friend of mine that was crapping on one of my favorite places. And I was like, it doesn't have to be perfect for you. Like, I didn't know a polite way to say that, but I was like, it's not about you. Like, I know you want to have a good experience in there, but you knew some of this stuff going in. So
Yeah.
smaller place. And he was like, well, it took too long.
Yeah.
And I was like, you knew that going in. Like, tough.
I guess we are all a little guilty of, oversharing our opinions, and I'm sure the social media culture has contributed to that.
Yeah.
We all do want to be heard. We all want to share opinions about everything all the time, and it can be a little exhausting. And like I said, I'm just as guilty of it. But if we could all dial that back a little bit, maybe things would be easier.
Yeah. So where can folks follow Dopo online? Website, social media? What's the best avenue?
Yeah, so of the social media accounts, Dopo Pizza on Instagram, on Facebook. Our website is adopopizza.com. So that's ADOPO pizza.com. You can find us there. We're open 7 days a week at 5 o'clock for dinner only, all throughout the year, with exception of some holidays.
And my thing, get the gelato. The gelato is amazing. And last time I was in there, I ate 2 bowls. So
Thank you.
Get the gelato. All right. Thank you for doing this.
Yes. Thank you, Jody. It's a pleasure.